motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Definitely, it's been a hard loss, you know. And again, because I couldn't even look at it and go, well, you know what? At least I boxed really well. I gave it my best. I had to put on a good performance, but she was the better fighter on the night. It wasn't like that. It was like I boxed absolutely dog balls, like absolute shit. And yeah, she was the better fighter on night. 100%, she deserved the win. But me, I was shit. Like every time I think about what was I doing? Like what was going on? Like I know what was going on. Like I was fighting with myself because I'm trying to do what I've been practicing in the gym. I'm trying to be doing what we're doing. And then it was like it got to a point where it's like, okay, well now you got to do old ebb. But it was like I hadn't done it for so long. Like I've pulled myself away from that because, you know, of the things that was like, you know, don't waste punches and don't, you know, like you got to box smart and stuff like, don't, you know, whatever. Don't get hit. I fucking end up getting hit. Oh my God. Anyways, no, just thinking about it. It's just, that's what it was.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't just about the loss. I can lose, and I always lose gracefully. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you do.
And you know, but it was just, the hardest thing was just going, it was I boxed like shit. Like someone's never thrown a punch before. Like that's what it feels like to me. And I just know I'm so much better than that.
I don't know how much or how little Matchroom is working on getting Ebony Bridges that rematch with Miyo Yoshida, though it seems like they have very little leverage in the situation because Ebony obviously didn't have a rematch clause that she could activate should she lose. Miyo, she isn't their fighter. They haven't signed her. She's with Lou DiBella.
Y'all know how much Lou loves Matchroom.
Miyo Yoshida already has a mandatory challenger in the queue. Not that the mandatory has been ordered. It hasn't, but it's only a matter of time before it is, and the clock is ticking for Matchroom, if they want to stage that rematch between Ebony and Miyo.
But do they want to?
How invested are they in Ebony, and how invested are they in the bantamweight division?
Where you're going to base yourself next for another fight? Because I know I've seen obviously in previous interviews that you've obviously moving on from Dave. Do you know where the next step is for you now?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's kind of, it's like I don't want to keep, like you say, like I don't want to keep chopping and changing coaches. And after like the last fight and, you know, that whole camping experience or whatever, I just thought I don't want to now risk trying to find another coach to make sure that I gel, and, you know, you got to get to know them and all that shit. Do you know what I mean? I don't want that. And I've got Brian and Kaylee, who are my American coaches that have been with me from day one. They know me inside out. You know, I've been in Philadelphia for that like fall camp. I've been over there for like almost a year, you know, and ideally they are my best trainers and they've always been the best for me, but I just didn't want to move to America and I didn't want to live in America. So I've, since moving to the UK, it's like I've always tried to find like a trainer that I can obviously settle with here so I don't have to do that travel. But I think I'm just at a point where I just want them, you know, I trust them with my heart, like, you know, and I know that they know me inside out. I know whatever they tell me that it's going to work.
She's recently sat down with Boxing Social and let them know that she's not going to be with David Caldwell moving forward, which fueled my suspicions that they weren't gelling. They weren't getting along in all the ways that she was getting along with Mark Tibbs.
She's gonna go back to being trained by Brian Cohen and Kaylee Reese.
The problem being that they're separated by Atlantic waters, transatlantic waters, that, you know, they're in America. She's in the UK. She doesn't want to be based out of here.
She's 37 years old now.
Seems like a taboo subject to bring up her age, but it's a factor. It's a factor if you find yourself wondering, how invested is Matchroom in getting her belt back? How invested is Matchroom in the bantamweight division?
They seem more invested in the super bantamweight division, where they have Ali Scotney and Ramla Ali and Erica Cruz.
Got 2 champions at super bantamweight. None at bantamweight. What used to be their WBA champion, Nina Hughes, she jumped ship. She's with Lou DiBella now.
That surprised me.
That threw me for a loop. I felt like the whole reason that they signed Nina was to do the unification match between her and Ebony, but Ebony's not a champion anymore. She doesn't have a belt anymore. Miyo took it from her. So since she doesn't have a belt anymore...
And Nina left.
How invested are they? How invested are they in Ebony? How invested are they in the bantamweight division?
Is this a priority?
What's Ebony Bridges' relationship with Matchroom looking like these days? Will she be the next fighter to jump ship? Is she not a priority to them anymore? And should she take her business elsewhere? One place she can go is Boxer.
If that's the situation.
If that partnership is coming to an end. I'm just bouncing ideas around that if it is, one place she can go is Boxer, a popular place for former Matchroom fighters or fighters who used to box on Matchroom shows.
It's where they seem to end up.
Ben Shalom needs the bodies, Boxer needs the familiar faces, and Ebony needs the opportunities and someone who's willing to pay to play.
She said something about a Shannon Courtenay rematch in that interview, but I'm not even sure that Shannon can keep making 118 pounds.
Keep making it? She hasn't made it in over a year, I think. It's a legitimate question, given Ebony Bridges' age and that she's coming off her second professional loss. What is the status of her relationship with Matchroom? What is Matchroom working on for her, if they're working on anything at all?
They don't have anybody else at 118 pounds, it looks like.
No champions anyway, no belt holders. Nina Hughes, Miyo Yoshida, they're with Lou DiBella. The only other champion at this weight, Dina Thorsland.
She's not with Matchroom.
Are they withdrawing their efforts from the bantamweight division and focusing on other divisions like super bantamweight, where they have 3 fighters, featherweight, where they have Sky Nicholson, super featherweight, where they have Alicia Baumgartner,
Lightweight, where they have Rhiannon Dixon and Beatrice Herrera, super lightweight, where they have Chantel Cameron and Katie Taylor,
welterweight, where they have Terry Harper and Sandy Ryan?
It's a legitimate question.
Men's super lightweight news. Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia on April 20th will be for Haney's WBC super lightweight world title, as a step-aside deal is being worked out to satisfy WBC mandatory challenger Sandor Martin and put him in line to fight the winner. WBC president Mauricio Suleiman has revealed to pro boxing fans.
That's not good.
Top Rank very recently signed Sandor Martin, and I don't think it's because they mean to turn him into a superstar in America. He just doesn't have the base style for it. Generally, pure boxers don't make for very fan-friendly fighters or fan-friendly fights, as we saw in the Jermaine Ortiz fight when he fought Teofimo Lopez.
Movers and outside fighters, jabbers, pure boxers, like a Sandor Martin.
Really not TV-friendly fighters, so you have to wonder, why would Top Rank go as far as signing a fighter from Spain who's not necessarily a very TV-friendly fighter? Why would they do that? And it's a strategic signing. It gives them leverage.
Over Devin.
Most people have Devin Haney winning the Ryan Garcia fight. Most people with 2 functioning brain cells, though if he does, he has to answer to Sandor after that. And 2 boxers, 2 pure boxers against each other?
It's a horrible style matchup.
2 outside fighters, 2 jabbers, 2 movers against each other. That's a horrible style matchup. So if Devin takes care of business against Ryan Garcia, should we expect that fight to be the next fight? I feel like if he beats Ryan, he might go back over to Top Rank, but not for Sandor, for Teofimo.
For a unification.
One of the only ways you can skip out on fighting your mandatory is to unify titles with another champion at the weight. In this situation, one way that Devin could circle around Sandor Martin is to go over there and fight Teofimo, which is a big fight.
It's bigger than a Matias fight.
Subriel Matias, reigning IBF champion of Puerto Rico, who recently crossed over from the PBC over to Matchroom, likely with Devin Haney in mind. Devin may have other plans after the Ryan Garcia fight, on the premise that fighting Lopez and unifying with him pays more than unifying with Matias. And stylistically, it's a much more winnable fight than a Matias fight.
One way that Devin Haney can get Sandor to stand down and play ball is to jump back into bed with Top Rank to fight another one of their fighters in what would be a bigger fight. And I'm sure that in that situation, the WBC themselves could be convinced to stand down.
Don't forget, these are the same people that let Jermall Charlo hang on to his WBC middleweight title for 2.5 years without defending it. Don't forget that these are the same people that in so many words said there's no deadline, there's no time frame to when Canelo has to fight his mandatory, David Benavidez.
Don't forget
the chicanery we saw up there at heavyweight when Dillian White was ranked at number 1 and Deontay Wilder was WBC champion, how they held off on ordering that fight.
Don't forget.
So when I think about that, and I think about all of this, how could Devin Haney get around having to fight Sandor Martin, but staying at 140 at the same time for those big fights, those money fights? He can have a unification with Teofimo. If Top Rank is on board and the WBC is on board.
Why do you think he'd want to go around Sandor Martin, though?
Well, it's not because he's afraid of him or anything like that. It's because it's a horrible style matchup.
It's not a big fight. It's not for big money. It's a horrible style matchup. It's horrible for us, the viewers.
2 pressure fighters makes for a fan-friendly fight that everyone can enjoy. 2 pressure fighters, 2 boxer punchers even, depending on their nuances and their uniqueness. 2 boxer punchers, but 2 pure boxers.
Yeah.
Guys staying away from each other, jabbing and feinting and managing the distance and barely throwing any punches. Two pure boxers.
You know, unless somebody breaks character, that's a horrible style matchup for television.
They signed that guy with this in mind, if you understand me. They didn't sign him because they think they're going to turn him into a star in America, and they didn't necessarily sign him because they want to make him a world champion. They're using him as a pawn, a piece on the board to have leverage over Devin Haney.
Some kind of leverage.
Something to lure him back to their side of things. It's WBC title at least. Brings him back to the table. That's if he wants to stay at 140. If he doesn't, after the Ryan Garcia fight, he wants to go up to 147, pursue a fight with, say, Mario Barrios, somebody like that. That is an alternative.
See what he does.
Stated, I'm of the opinion that if he beats Ryan Garcia, and I think he's going to, what he would then move to do is fight Teofimo Lopez, because that's the next biggest fight that he can have at super lightweight, and that would allow him to circumvent his mandatory.
Think he beats Ryan? Does he beat Teofimo?
I absolutely think he beats Teofimo Lopez for the same reason that he beat Regis Prograis, because boxer punches of a certain type, boxer punchers with an affinity for counterpunching, are not as good coming forward as they are hanging back.
There's different types of boxer punches, you know, there's different types. The boxer puncher with an affinity for counterpunching, that's Teofimo, that's Regis, that's Gervonta Davis.
This kind of boxer puncher is not the most prolific puncher. They don't have the highest work rate per se, and they rely on single shots.
Strong ones.
They want to plant one on their opponent, a hard counter, and then move in. The rest of the time, they're hanging back, they're creating space, and waiting for the opportunity to strike. And that's when they're at their best. But if they have to give chase, if they have to come forward,
they're not as good coming forward as they are hanging back.
Primarily relying on the other man's aggression. They're relying on the other man to step into his punches, step into his jab, to try to bring other punches over so they can catch them in between. Devin,
you won't get that chance with him.
He's a pure boxer, and pure boxers have a tactical advantage over boxer punchers, particularly the ones with an affinity for counterpunching. You're waiting for a window of opportunity that isn't going to open.
Pure boxer, outside fight is too economic. He's going to stay behind his jab. You can't catch him in between. It's too hard. With Devin's height and his length and his speed,
it's that much harder for a short, stumpy fighter like Teofimo, who characteristically struggles when he comes forward. So if you're asking me if I think Devin beats him, I think he beats him handily.
And I think he might look to fight him
after the Ryan Garcia fight. Garcia!
Why are you yelling?
Sorry. Resident Matchroom impresario Eddie Hearns has already started ramping up promotions for his man at 140 pounds, Subriel Matias, saying, as I've said about Teofimo Lopez, if Top Rank want to come out to play with Subriel, let's do it, but they're not going to. If it was in their interest to make Lopez versus Matias, they had their chance not that long ago. They had their chance before Subriel committed to Matchroom, signed with them. They had their chance. And according to Subriel, they were non-committal to making that fight. They were non-committal to making a Lopez fight a part of his deal.
They wouldn't guarantee him that.
That's what he said to Contragolpe here on YouTube. Thus, on that predication, he decided to go over the Matchroom, which theoretically brings him closer to Devin Haney, though in truth, I don't think he's going to get Teofimo or Devin inside the next two fights. I don't think it happens.
Then why go to Matchroom?
Because they have fight dates and super lightweights, other super lightweights for Subriel to keep busy with while he waits for those big fights to roll around, because eventually they're going to.
And he doesn't want to sit on the shelf collecting dust waiting for a fight date over at the PBC. He could have jumped into bed with Top Rank,
but he's actually already been there and done that with Top Rank. People tend to forget that before he jumped into bed with the PBC, he was over there at Top Rank first.
It's
where the unfortunate situation with Maxim Dadashev happened. That was under the Top Rank banner in the bubble around the time of the shutdown and the pandemic.
He's already been there before. Then he went to the PBC. Then he becomes a free agent. He goes back over to Top Rank. They won't guarantee him Lopez.
In truth, Matchroom can't guarantee him Devin. They can't guarantee him that fight. So then you ask yourself, why go over there? Then why go to Matchroom? What's the virtue?
Fight dates.
Fight dates. They can keep you active. They can keep you busy. And I happen to think that Matchroom would roll out the red carpet a little more for Subriel than Top Rank would.
This is said to be a 5-fight deal. 5 fights under the Matchroom banner. That's at least 2 years.
It's a more extensive, comprehensive deal with Matchroom than what Regis Prograis signed. Regis signed for 3 fights. Subriel signed on for 5. Maybe we get Matias versus Prograis as one of those 5 fights. I like the idea of that fight. Stylistically, it's a fun matchup. The boxer-puncher versus the pressure fighter. Now, usually, the boxer-puncher has the advantage. The boxer-puncher has the edge in that situation. And Regis, he's the boxer-puncher, but he looked god-awful in his last fight.
Slow on his feet, couldn't get on the inside, couldn't get past Devin's jab, but Devin's a pure boxer.
Just talked about this. The pure boxer has a tactical edge over the boxer-puncher, and the boxer-puncher has a tactical edge over the pressure fighter. What did I just say?
What?
Boxer-punchers with an affinity for counter-punching are at their best when they're hanging back, creating space to set up a counter. Pressure fighters,
They like to come forward. They like to throw punches in bunches. So that boxer-puncher, he doesn't have to chase them. He doesn't have to find them.
the pressure fighter will find him. The question is, does Regis still have enough left in the tank in his mid-30s for another mid-range to inside shootout? Another mid-range to inside war like the one we saw years ago between him and Tosh Jailer? I don't expect that this is going to be Subriel's next fight and his first fight under the Matchroom banner. I don't expect that to be the next fight, but it could be the second fight, the fight after the next one.
And the question is, does Regis still have enough left in the tank in his mid-30s coming off his latest loss for a fight like that? Because that's what that fight would be. A mid-range to inside shootout. Does he still have the speed, the reflexes? They say power is the last thing to go.
But reaction time is among the first. Does Regis still have it?
He's a boxer-puncher.
And so is Teofimo Lopez. With Teofimo Lopez, it's a bit different because he's many years younger than, say, Regis Prograis, but I'm not sure he's all that durable. You see what George Kambosos did to him. He badly bloodied him. And you see that he was dropped 2 times coming in by a non-puncher in Sandor Martin.
What happens if Subriel hits this guy?
Teofimo, like Regis Prograis, has the right style for the job, but it's the caveat that's different. Where it's about age with Regis, it's about durability with Teofimo. He is a naturally smaller fighter who moved up in weight. He was down there at 135 for many years.
He's certainly younger than Regis, and he might be a bit faster, a bit sharper.
Though not as durable, I suppose. It's neither here nor there because, as stated, I don't expect Subriel to get a crack at Teofimo anywhere inside the next 2 fights, if ever at all.
Regis is more realistic, and I'd like to see that fight. I still would.
Still a good fight.